All right. This is going to be the last video that I'm going to do on these fires, folks. Excuse me. You got a signal? Yeah, we do. All right. This is your host, Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, coming to you live on this January 15th, 2025. My contact information is PO Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834, on the web at joeimbriano777@gmail.com. And my website's thefullertoninformer.com and many others. All right. So, you know, it's time for me to talk about the how here, folks. Not so much why, but how they did this, all right? And I'm going to go into what happened in Los Angeles. And I don't mind telling you, folks, you know, the people that are seeking to destroy us are not powerful. They're just very evil. And it's not about the power they have. It's about how low they will go, okay? And that's a very key point here, all right? Because you and I, by and large, are not capable of even comprehending how filthy, evil, or degenerate these people are, because we do not have a mind that is completely reprobate, that has been turned over to the works of the devil like these people. So it's not like they're powerful. They go really low. They do like hideous, heinous, evil, disgusting things. And they prey on weakness, and they don't hit below the belt. They live below the belt, folks. And actually, they're going to spend eternity below the ground. All right. So, I want to talk to you about some basic issues, okay, when it comes to what happened. All right, we have all you guys tuning in here. Okay, well, first of all, I've mentioned many times that I have a large number of barometers at my house. You know, I've always been very interested in the weather, and, you know, something that people don't talk about is the barometric pressure, right? And yet the barometric pressure is one of the most telltale indicators of weather forecasting. It's probably one of the most accurate ways to determine what we can anticipate, meteorologically speaking, in the short term and in long-term trends. But by and large, most people don't have a barometer. They don't understand barometric pressure. And consequently, they're just oblivious to it. It's not even a conversation piece. It's not on the table. They have had weather control machines and patents for decades. It's not a new technology. It's been around forever. They've just perfected it, and they're playing with it right now. But they have set up areas of high pressure that will always seek to find an area of low pressure to flow to. That's just nature. That's just basic life and how things work on this earth. When something's under high pressure, it wants to escape and normalize, right? And go down to a lower pressure. So that's what caused these winds. All right? These winds were created by weather modification, by the installation of high and low pressure gradients to cause tremendously powerful winds, which are rather common in this region of the United States, although this time of the year they're not very common. Normally this time of the year we're being bombarded with cold fronts from the Gulf of Alaska, connecting with the subtropical components known as the Pineapple Express, with these cold fronts having tails a 1,000 miles long, barometric pressure readings anywhere from 29.79 to 29.92 inches of mercury on average for months in the winter. As the cold fronts approach, drop rain. We get the counterclockwise cyclonic circulation with the southeast wind once the thing is up and running and dumping. And then as it weakens, periods and passes through, the wind changes to westerly, southwesterly, and then once the cold front passes through, we get a northwesterly clearing wind and a rising barometer. And then maybe some fog will roll in, the onshore flow will return, the barometer will drop back down to 29.98 inches of mercury. We'll get a little bit of marine layer, some fog or some ground fog. Afternoon clearing, and the anomaly would be a Santa Ana condition being set up between the cold fronts and the clearing wind periods. Intermittent, very rare, maybe for a couple of days, not for a couple of months. But what we've had in Southern California is barometric pressure readings that have been above 30.10 inches of mercury for months. And in the past couple of weeks, they've risen above 30.20 inches of mercury. And when I talk about high barometric pressure, I'm talking about high air pressure. And when air is under pressure, it's more dense. It's a very key component that you need to understand. And I don't know how many people have touched on this or talked about it, but I'm going to talk about it right now. The higher the barometric pressure of the atmosphere, the higher the oxygen content. Let me repeat this. The higher the barometric pressure of the atmosphere, the higher the oxygen content. When air is more dense, under more pressure, it has more oxygen molecules per square inch than in other circumstances. Now, they have created consistent high pressure over this region. And I don't mind telling you how they do it. They've got these scalar weapons and, ionospheric heaters where they can, change the temperature of the different components of the atmosphere. They have ground-based phased array systems that they can bounce off the firmament 1,000 miles away and triangulated to come down over here. And I'm still on topic number 1, folks, barometric pressure. Okay, listen to me. They can induce high pressure meteorological events with weather modification technology. Now that's involving, they can spray stuff up there, metallic compounds, generally fly ash, which is aluminum products from they're byproducts of the coal industry's waste. And they spray it up there and they microwave it and they can heat up the atmosphere. They can change the trajectory of storms, cold fronts. They can get rid of the rain. They can do all kinds of things, folks. They can make the rain stay to the north, which they've done. They've put a tremendous amount of rain to the north of us. They've dried us out. Tremendous drying in Southern California. Not a drop of rain for months here, okay? Not a drop of rain for months in Southern California. Probably since like last March, I think, is when we had any measurable rain. But my point is they use weather modification to induce high pressure. High pressure gives us high density oxygen levels in the atmosphere, all right? Now that we've got that off the table, now that we understand where the winds come from, we also get, as a side effect, as an added bonus of inducing these wind events with this high barometric pressure, high levels of oxygen. Now, when you want to start a fire, you've got to have dry material and low humidity and high oxygen, right? Okay? Anybody who is an auto guy knows all about a turbo, right? Or, the compression levels of an engine. The more air you add to the fuel mixture, the better your combustion and the amount of more power you're going to get out of it. So, number 2. Actually, let's finish number 1. So they induce the high pressure systems with weather modification and spraying stuff up there, hitting it with ground-based phased array weaponry. They could be bouncing it off the firmament, triangulating it back down. This could be being done from 5,000 miles away, folks. All right? And of course, the scalar weaponry they have to, change the pressure gradients in the atmosphere. Okay, they've got the ability to do this stuff. Now, number 2, let's talk about the chemistry of combustion. Well, in order to have combustion, you have to have a hydrocarbon or a fuel, you have to have oxygen, and you have to have ignition. All right, so let's talk about this. Number two, we now know where the oxygen levels are increased from, right? The inducement of high barometric pressure. So we've increased the oxygen levels. And by the way, I know they've increased the oxygen levels. You want to know why? My barometer tells me so, and so do my lungs when I'm outside at 11 o'clock at night. All right? I haven't been breathing this good for a very long time. As a matter of fact, the past couple of weeks, the air has been so heavy, even though it's so dry. There's so much oxygen in the air in Southern California right now. It's unbelievable. And I hear these sniveling, emasculated circus clowns on the radio talking about now how the particulate pollution levels are now invisible and it's dangerous. You should stay in your house. I get it if you're in the zone, but man alive. In Orange County, I mean, the visibility was 60 miles. The air is just so clean and so crisp, and you know, there's so much oxygen in the air right now, it's abnormal. Okay, and it's quantifiable by personal observation and through the measurements of my barometers. So in order to have fire, you got to have fuel, you got to have lack of humidity. It's hard to start a fire when it's raining. When the atmosphere is saturated with water, fires don't like to take off. You see, you know, just like it's hard to breathe in high humidity, or, you know, when you're in high humidity situations, your body can't off-gas the oxygen from your aerobic respiration cycle. The atmosphere doesn't like, fires don't do well in dampness, folks, because in order for fire to really take off, the reaction has to be pushed to the right, and the atmosphere has to be able to take away the waste products efficiently. And if the atmosphere is loaded up with moisture, fire doesn't do well. But when it's super dry and you got tons of brush and tons of wood and tons of trees and tons of flammable materials, and you have increased levels of oxygen and you have increased levels of wind velocity, and you have an ignition source, you have a recipe for an amazing fire, right? Now let's talk about number three. This is the third bullet point of this information. Number three, the fuel for these fires. What was the fuel for these fires? Well, we know that it started in the wall of brush to the northeast of this community, because anybody who can look at a satellite, well, not a satellite image, but a rendering of an alleged satellite image, can see that this place was literally like, walled off by flammable, naturally occurring chaparral, brush and oak and flammable trees and bushes, right? And so there's a wall of flammable material just behind it, and the wind was blowing from that flammable material all the way to the ocean, which it does all the time, which it has forever, and there's never been a problem there. So we know that there was plenty of natural fuel. Now, we know that a lot of these homes can burn because they have asphalt roofs and there's trees and things that can burn. But we also know that there are things inside these homes that can be ignited. Now, I want to talk to you about the ignition, because I'm talking about what caused the fire. These fires were no doubt intentionally set by professional arsonists in the area to the northeast, in the wilded area just to the northeast of the Palisades, which is heavily covered in brush. It's rural. It's open space. It's nature preserve coyote territory, right? So they've admitted on them in the media that they've caught people, professional gear, torch, everything else, suit, oxygen mask, tank, no doubt an intelligence agency asset, torching that area, and that's what started the fires. Now here's the kicker, folks. They are able to blow up your house with your flammable refrigerants in your air conditioning systems, your heat pumps, and your refrigerators, okay? Let me repeat this. They were able to blow up your house with your flammable refrigerants in your refrigerators and your air conditioners. Pull your refrigerator out. And I've talked about this. Look at the back of your refrigerator. It'll tell you it has an explosion warning on it, okay? That's what it has. Because they are now using flammable gas as the gas that they use to compress and expand to extract heat from the air to make the cold, right? I mean, that years ago they used chlorofluorocarbons until Dr. Molina and Dr. Rowland came up with this fraud called the ozone scam. And by the way, in my senior year at University of California, Irvine, my physical chemistry lab was right next to their lab in the basement of the physical science building. So I had firsthand experience literally turning the doorknob to the next of their laboratory entrance. And I'm very familiar with their work and their fraud, okay? Ozone is something that is not depleted in mass by things we do on the ground. Ozone is something, it's 3 oxygen molecules that's rather unstable, that is constantly being broken down and produced in flux, in perpetuity, by natural forces, natural ultraviolet light from the sun. It's constantly being replenished, okay? So this ozone scam was just an excuse to get refrigeration to become more costly and more explosive, and that's what they've done. Now all of the propellants in the car air conditioners, the home air conditioners, the home refrigerators, the commercial refrigerators, the restaurant refrigerators, all use a flammable gas. Cyclopentane or, some other, you don't put propane or flammable gases in a compressor. And if you do, you better not hook it up to 110 volts to a smart meter with a bunch of computer circuits in there with back doors built into it. So they're able to blow up homes with the flammable gases, with the appliances, which, by the way, are Wi-Fi enabled, with these homes with smart meters and the Wi-Fi systems in them. These things amount to bombs, folks. That's why I still have old refrigerators. I don't have any refrigerators or freezers with flammable refrigerants in them in my home. And I don't have a smart meter, because I don't want them remote controlling and surging these things and blowing them up and burning my house down while my children are asleep. Now, that's another source of ignition, is the flammable gases in these appliances. And of course, the smart meters are very sophisticated. They know if you have a compact fluorescent light on, or you're running a can opener, or your fish aquarium pump is running. They can tell what's going on in your house. It's a two-way street, by the way. They can get into your house, and they can also send things. They could shut off your air conditioner because you signed up for that scam program to save electricity, right? They can control your appliances through the Wi-Fi back doors, and they can control your appliances through the smart meters. And when you got a transformer on the pole, hooked up with a big, fat, thick cable, going to your electric circuit breaker panel, and you got a smart meter on there, and you got flammable propellants in your appliances, you got bombs all over your house. Now, let's talk about another thing they have at their disposal, folks. And when I talk of this, is number 3. They have these devices. They have these weapons. They have plasma weapons. They have directed energy weapons. They have weapons that operate at 60 gigahertz, which are directed energy weapons. They have laser weapons, folks. They have all kinds of stuff. They have all kinds of stuff that can literally play whack-a-mole with your house, okay? They can hit your house, and they can burn it down. They can blow it up. They can light it on fire, okay? These weapons are the weapons that your children learned how to make when they went to college and they learned all these fields of study, and you thought that, they were getting an education. They were actually working for the deniers of Jesus Christ, who wage war through deception and murder innocent people and run all kinds of false flags so they can push their agenda to genocide all the human cattle, okay? And that's what they're doing. And, they've got 20 things going at once. I mean, if they don't have, some war going or some economic collapse going or some famine going, they'll have some natural disaster going where, they've got machines, folks, that your children. Why do you think they have this education system here? Why do you think they train? Why do you think the United States is nothing but a giant killing machine when it comes to its economic output? All we do is make a bunch of weapons and weaponized technology. Now they transfer everything over to China, where they're making all the weaponized technology. But for crying out loud, folks, in Southern California, for the last 40 or 50 years, this place is, the economy was based completely on making weapons to kill people. Fighter jets and bombs and rockets and all. Look, folks, it's all military, kill everybody technology economy here. They leveled this place, which could have fed the world with this beautiful climate. It's, I'm on number 3 still. I'm on number 3. Let me talk about a sidebar as I take a pause here. Southern California was slated by the original planners, who were good-natured, good-hearted people that came over here. And they were going to put in desalination plants in San Onofre. They had a couple more plans for more nuclear reactors. They were going to build desal plants. And they were going to use this region to farm and feed the country. Because this climate, this soil, this area here is so incredible that everything grows 12 months a year. The soil's amazing. The climate's amazing. There's plenty of water under the ground here. There's plenty of water accessible through desalination to produce enough food, literally to fruits, vegetables, livestock, you name it, this place could do it, right? What'd they do? They decided to, put Hollywood here, where they run their Kabbalah to tell everybody what they're going to do in advance. So that's their Pontius Pilate hand-washing operation as they subvert and destroy and kill and murder and maim and pervert and corrupt the whole world. Yeah, that's right. They planted Hollywood here instead of orange groves. And then they tore all the orange groves down to give us the Tragic Kingdom, Disney 666, right? Disneyland's here, right? And then they concreted everything and put a bunch of houses for the defense contractors. We had used aircraft, McDonnell Douglas and General Dynamics and Raytheon, and all these Grumman and all these companies that they make all this technology for to make helicopters with guns on them and laser beams and directed energy weapons and laser weapons and munitions and all kinds of stuff to kill and seek and destroy and subvert. And they turned the breadbasket of the country into the killing field machine production facility, right? And so now we've got this beautiful place that once was able to feed the world, and it's been turned into a bunch of mindless zombies that work for these people in various industries, whether it's brainwashing or butchering, right? I mean, that's what they've done. All right, back to number 3. So anyway, it's really sad what's happened here. And the Palisades was a big hit. It was a big takedown. And it was a big FU to all those people in Hollywood that served them. That's what they get. That's what they get. When you work for these people, that's what they do to you. I mean, okay, so you're going to find yourself in your bathtub with your slit wrists and then your daughter's dead 6 months later. Is that how they operate? You bet that's how they operate. Just look at the track record of all of these Hollywood people. And now all these Hollywood people have lost their paradise. They've lost their livelihoods. They've lost their homes. They've lost their connections. They've lost their social strata. It's all gone. It's not coming back. They took their money and they just got the big boot with a big steel point in it, is at 100 miles an hour up their backside by these people. And let's not forget the incompetence involved by the Marxist government people in Los Angeles that made sure that we didn't have enough water, and then we had the evacuation order to tell everybody to leave instead of put out the fire and save their homes with a garden hose like other people did, right? Oh no. So that brings me to my 4th point. Why the fires were allowed to get out of control. And I'll tell you why, folks. Number 1, intentional incompetence and funding cuts to very important public service agencies. They cut the living crap out of the fire budget. You got people that are totally incompetent in there, and there's a lot of good, hardworking people that risk their lives. But by and large, there's not enough manpower. Look, they have boats. The military has boats. They have boats in the harbor in Long Beach, in Los Angeles Harbor. They could have had firefighting ships off the coast shooting water at those hills. They could have had the scoopers come in. Why don't we have scoopers, right? We have all this technology, all this weaponry, all the police x-ray in your freaking house, Stingray technology on the cell towers, reading your email. And we got to wait for Canada to fly down a plane to scoop water out of the ocean. We have more brush fires here than anywhere. No, we got free porn and free needles and free fentanyl and hotels and crash pads and opium dens for the homeless drug addicts, and free sex changes, lawyers, daycare, housing, food, dental, medical, legal help for all the illegal aliens, right? But we don't have any money spent on infrastructure that routinely tests the pressure of fire hydrants or invests in things that could save lives and save property, like these aircraft that can scoop water out of an ocean that spans 800 miles of our coastline, that was literally a half a mile across the street from this fire. And we didn't deploy any military ships to put the fire out, or any of the ships from the harbor. I didn't see the harbor master or the harbor patrol, dispatching any of these firefighting ships from the Long Beach harbor, the LA harbor, or any of these areas that could have been there within hours. Nothing. They let it burn. And then we hear these cockamamie excuses about how the pressure was low because it wasn't sufficient to meet the demand. No freaking kidding. When you light the whole place on fire and modify the weather and get the wind up to 80 miles an hour and start blowing up the appliances through the smart meters, and then run directed energy weapons and plasma weapons and microwave weapons on this area. And for crying out loud, I might as well talk about this. I mean, if you don't believe they have magnetic induction that can ignite things from the ground, I think you better wake up. Do any of you have an induction stove in your kitchen? Do you know what magnetic induction is? Do you realize these people are not powerful? They just go there. They go low, folks. That's right. That's right. That's what they do. So, this is how it went down. All right? Weather modification, intentional, drying the place out, setting up the pressure gradient for these offshore winds, these wicked high velocity winds, increasing the oxygen content of the atmosphere, making sure that it was dried out by inducing a drought for the last year. And then, of course, hiring professional arsonists to just drop into the canyon with full gear, torches, oxygen tanks, masks, protective gear, and everything. Light the thing on fire, then start arcing the smart meters and start surging the air conditioners, blowing up the compressors in these refrigeration systems in the cars, in the homes, and then telling everybody to get the hell out of there and abandon ship. Do you realize that place could have been saved if everybody stayed there and fought those fires with their garden hoses? Do you realize the chance they would have had at licking this thing? Do you realize the fire got out of control because everybody left and the fire department never came? Do you realize that's what happened? They were told to leave. Does this sound familiar? Remember they were told to leave in Maui and the water was shut off? Remember what happened in Paradise? Remember what happened on 9/11 when the firefighters' radios were jammed and there was no water in the sprinkler systems? Remember? Here we go again, folks. Here we go again. They've got all this weaponry, folks. Your children made it. Maybe you worked in the systems yourself. Maybe you got a nice retirement and, you're over at Parker's Lighthouse slamming gin and tonics and stuffing your face with ribeye over at Peter's Landing back in the 80s. I remember seeing all you red-faced clowns gloating in your, whatever. I remember you guys, I remember going out to dinner with my lovely girlfriends and seeing the cholesterol faces, of alcoholism and defense contracting isms. That's right. You built the weapons. You know damn well what I'm talking about too. They have the ability to do this. Some of you guys are pilots. Some of you guys are engineers. Some of you guys are, experts in electrodynamics. You guys know what I'm talking about. Magnetic induction weaponry, ground-based technology that runs through the dirt. They can blow things up. You know, what do you think these ground wave emergency network towers are for? You think it's for communication? you think that they actually give a crap? Every time we have a disaster, the radios don't work, right? But yet they have these GWEN towers all over the place, right? Where they're running this massive power through the ground, right? Electromagnetic energy. Plasma weapons. Okay? You ever seen a laser, an invisible laser just engrave steel and, ignite things? Have you ever seen some of the demonstrations of these things that they have? Like I said, folks, they're not powerful. These people aren't powerful. They're just lowlifes. And they do the unthinkable. They do things that we would never conceive of doing for their gain and for the father, the devil. That's what they do. You need to understand. So what do we take away from this? Well, you need to stand your ground. We're on our own, folks. I've always said this. We're on our own when it comes to surviving and defending ourselves, protecting ourselves, and feeding ourselves. And, you cannot rely on the government. The government's a problem. Okay, the government's run by Marxist, communist murderers. Okay, I mean, if you want a sex change, you can get it for free. If you want an abortion, you can get it for free. If you want to get chemotherapy, you can get it for free. But man alive, if you want to do something healthy like hyperbaric oxygen after a stroke, forget it, man. You're out $5,000 a day for that one, baby. They don't care, man. They'll kill your children. They'll give you a sex change. They'll give you an abortion, but they won't give you life-saving hyperbaric oxygen after you've had a horrible stroke, right? No, they don't do that. But anything bad is good. Anything good is bad. And these guys, a bunch of lowlifes, and they'll build back better. And that place will be another one of those places where you'll have the high rise and high density with cell towers everywhere. You got to understand, folks, that they mean business. They got to get rid of the trees. You're going to hear how trees are bad. The 5G doesn't work if there's a bunch of trees in a city. The trees block the millimeter waves. That's another component of this. They've got to get their matrix in. That's what the black cables are going in everywhere. They're digging up all the streets everywhere. They're putting in the black body radiation, control grid, the millimeter wave oxygen deprivation frequencies, the I can't breathe total recall, system where everybody's living where they can't breathe, right? I don't know, folks. All I know is this to me is as obvious as, you can't get any more obvious as to what's going on here. I mean, and why do I go and do these videos? Well, I just want everybody to be aware of what's being done. Now, the final conclusion here is you need to get rid of your smart meter. Don't let them put one on your house. You need to get rid of your flammable appliances in your home. You should not have flammable refrigerants. Pull out your refrigerator. Look at the back of it. It's got the explosion warning on it. I'd probably get it out of your house. All right. If you're going to have one, put it in your shed in your backyard or something. But you can't bring weapons into your house. You can't hook everything in your house up to a remote control that can be messed with 1,000 miles away. And if you live somewhere and you got a swimming pool and it's a fire hazard, go spend a couple $100 on a firefighting pump. It'll save your home, save your neighbor's home. And, hold your ground. Get yourself a good garden hose nozzle. And if they shut the water off, I don't know what to tell you, but it's sad. But here we go, folks. If you believe in the climate change fraud, then you're going to accept these wind events. If you believe this climate change fraud, you're going to accept these hurricane events. If you believe in this climate change fraud, you're going to believe in these drought events. If you believe in the climate change fraud, you're going to believe in these flooding events as normal instead of weather modification. They can control the weather from 10,000 miles away. They just triangulate their weaponry off the roof, which is the firmament. They've been bouncing stuff off the firmament. That's how we have all these communications, folks. There are no satellites up there. You go up to an airplane 30,000 feet and it's, 100 degrees below zero. And, there's no atmosphere to speak of. And, radio waves don't transmit through a vacuum, folks. They got to have something to carry them. There's got to be some sort of matter. There has to be some sort of cable, if you will. Like, for example, we have these, I don't know if you've ever seen these towers, these big towers, and they got these big circular drums on them, right? They got a lightning bolt on them. Those are point-to-point communication systems. They can go very long distances. They broadcast at 60 gigahertz, which is the absorption spectrum of oxygen. They literally use the oxygen molecules in the atmosphere as a carrier wire, okay? So all this fraud about, stuff from space is BS, folks. Everything is ground-based and in your face. And I'll be honest with you, folks, I'm sick of it! And you should be too. All right? All right, this has been long and hard for me, but we did it, okay? And I put it out there. I don't want to talk about these fires again. I want to talk about other things going forward. But man alive, this is a horrible mess. And because people have been so subverted, indoctrinated, and dumbed down, and manipulated and deceived, that I need to talk about this, and I need to make people aware and empower people not to be victims of these ruthless, psychopathic, low-level devil worshippers. Because okay, this is the closing point. Who in their right mind worships the devil? Well, Hollywood, right? Why? Because they serve the sons of Cain. Okay, you got to do some homework on where did the first murderer come from? Did Eve give birth to a murderer? Who was the father? The devil. Think about it. There's a lot of stuff your pastor's not going to talk about if you're a Christian. And by the way, I guess I got to start talking about Trump's appointments, because he just put a butcher in charge of the Secretary of Defense. And so we're going to switch gears here on the next couple of broadcasts. But man, in Jesus' name, please repent of your filth. And if there's any hope for you, now's the time to take it. You evil people that are in on this, come forward, come clean, come help others, come join this, come join us. Come join the side of the Lord Jesus Christ, who will forgive you if you will just repent and walk away from what you've done and try to restore 100-fold what you've stolen, robbed, or destroyed, or burned, or ruined, okay? God allows for a complete U-turn through Jesus Christ. You can be forgiven for whatever you've done. I don't care what you've done. I don't care if every single sin can be forgiven through Jesus' sacrifice, folks. Just take it. Just come to your knees and say, I'm done. I'm done serving the devil.